The mist's clear. The psychic's eyes roll back. They're white. An impossibly deep voice says, "Warning, adult content and situations within. Proceed with caution."
PseudoPod, episode 637, for March 1st, 2019. White Noise by Kai Hudson. Welcome and hello. I'm Sandra Odell, writer, dreamer, mother, narrator, editor, and host, sometimes all at once. You may already be familiar with my stories for the Escape Artist podcasts, including PseudoPod episode 536, Meet, and Cast of Wonders episode 238, The Absolute Temperature of Outer Space, both for Artemis Rising 3, and Podcastle episode 376, Inc. I am also one of the co-editors of the Drabblecast podcast, Strange Stories for Strange Listeners. My short story collection, Godfall and Other Stories, is currently available through Amazon. The author of this week's story is Kai Hudson. Kai lives in sunny California, where she writes, hikes, and spends entirely too much time daydreaming of far-off worlds. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in Clark's World, Metamorphosis, and Chasma SF, among others. White Noise was previously published in the April 2018 issue of Anathema, Spec from the Margins. Your narrator this week is Chris Tang. Chris is a Cast of Wonders associate editor and is appreciative that the role gives him an excuse to read more. He has loved speculative fiction since childhood and spends as much time in other worlds as possible. Chris is a recovering lawyer who now distributes role-playing games to the masses for his day job. In his spare time, when not parenting, he engages in too many hobbies, such as playing music, reading, painting, listening to fiction podcasts, tabletop role-playing, listening to audiobooks, writing, and running a post-apocalyptic Wild West boffer LARP with his wife and some friends. Chris stays busy and lives in the suburbs of Atlanta, Georgia with his wife, son, and two of the worst roommates ever who happen to be cats. Follow him on Twitter. Now, we have a story for you, and we promise you it's true.
White Noise by Kai Hudson. Narrated by Christopher Tang. It's a hearing aid, Nina says, with a careful smile. Robert frowns at the little device on the table. It's innocuous-looking enough. A silver teardrop roughly the size of his thumb. Not brown? Aren't hearing aids brown? With the clear plastic tube part that wraps around the shell of the ear. It looks delicate and expensive. He wants to smash it to bits. Wan Jing lays a hand on his arm. The muscles relax almost on reflex. She turns to their daughter with a curious cock of the head. You got this without the insurance? That's the excuse Robert has always used anyway, every time Nina sighed when she had to shout 3 times to get his attention. We can't afford it, Tian Tian, he'd say, shaking his head. It'd be $1,000 even with insurance. I looked. He hadn't, but Nina didn't need to know that. Now, though, she just looks triumphant. I got it off the internet, she says, tucking a lock of jet black hair behind an ear. With the other hand, she shifts her grip on little David, fast asleep against her breast with his thumb in his mouth. Although, I guess technically it's not a hearing aid. It's a hearing amplifier, she continues, switching to English for the new word. It's not, like, tuned to your ear by an audiologist or anything. It's just supposed to make noises louder. Robert narrows his eyes. How much did you pay? Relax, Baba, Nina flaps her free hand and then brings it down to stroke David's fine baby hair almost without thought. You do remember I work full-time now, right? I can afford to buy you nice things, especially things you need. She's right. Nina's fully 2 years out of grad school now, putting her PhD to good use at some big bioengineering company down in San Diego. She makes more than Robert did at her age, when his English was still halting and thick with residual Mandarin. Feng Shi Liu, printed in stark ink on his passport. He's Robert Fong now, just turned 60, already making vague retirement plans to take Wan Jing on a trip to Europe. Still, he can't help but look at Nina and see the tiny, squalling 6-month-old they brought off the plane with them at LAX, the little girl who liked flowery dresses and used to cry when he left on business trips, who has somehow grown into this confident young woman while Robert wasn't looking, with a full-time job, an infant, and a husband with skin the color of piano keys. Besides, Nina says, switching back to her American accented Mandarin, I got it off this website that sells high-quality used medical equipment from hospitals and she writes herself with a dancer's grace, private donors and the like. The stuff that only gets used once or twice, so it's practically new. It was super cheap, Baba. Don't worry about it. Wan Jing gives him the look. Robert hides his sigh and smiles. Okay, Tian Tian. Thank you. She beams at him, which is when David wakes up with a burp and a soft cry. Instantly, Nina's attention shifts, turning to make soft cooing noises at her son. Wan Jing gets up to fetch the bottle. Robert stays where he is, staring at the hearing aid. Well, if Nina went through all the trouble, at least he can do is try it. Maybe it won't be so bad. Wan Jing giggles at the dinner table that night when she asks him to pass her the bean curd, and he does so without hesitation. Look at that, his wife beams to Nina. It really works. Nina grins back, mashing boiled vegetables into a paste while David squirms in his high chair. Robert ducks his head, cheeks a little warm, but the hearing aid feels right where it's nestled in its ear. Now I can't pretend anymore not to hear you when you nag. That gets guffaws out of them both. David joins in the fun with a bubbly squeal, banging puffy fists against the plastic tray. The sound comes through clear and unmuffled. Whomp, whomp. It's almost too loud, and Robert winces at the fireworks in his ear. Was this how it always was, before he started losing half his hearing more than a decade ago? Baba? Nina's smile has paused on her face. You okay? Yes, Robert flaps his hand, only vaguely aware it's the exact same motion Nina used earlier that afternoon, and reaches up to touch the little gray teardrop. Maybe I have it set too far up, that's all. Then he hears it. Far away, crackly, like static, but growing steadily closer. Crying. A baby crying. He looks at David, but his grandson directs his loony grin at Nina, a glob of drool meandering down his chin. He glances at the sliding glass window next, which they've opened to let in the cool night air and dispel dinner's heavy soy sauce scent. Maybe there is a baby out there? But all their neighbors are their age or older with adult children. They would have heard about a new grandchild. The crying grows louder, a high-pitched wail rising to a shriek, then a series of wet gurgles, almost like water? Another shriek. This one sounds more urgent somehow, like the baby is in pain. Is someone's child in trouble? The community pool is only a few blocks down. Maybe someone went swimming with their baby and it doesn't like the water? It's the water! The water! Shiliu? He blinks, turns to see Wan Jing frowning at him. Across the table, Nina has paused with a spoonful of brown-green goop halfway to David's lips. She's watching him, though ignoring her son's impatient whines. Whines, not cries. What's wrong? Wan Jing asks. You look like you saw something terrible. Robert swallows, looking down at his bowl of rice. The half-eaten meatball atop the white grains stands out stark like a tiny brain. He clears his throat and nudges the bowl away. In his ear, his left ear, the crying continues, a half-scream now, interspersed with those terrible gurgling noises. You don't hear that? Nina and Wan Jing exchange confused glances. Hear what, Baba? His daughter asks. Robert shakes his head, reaches up to pop the hearing aid out of his ear. The crying stops. I think this thing is broken. Is that common for them to generate their own sounds? That can't be right. Crisis averted. Nina turns back to feeding David, who murmurs happily. The website has a money-back guarantee, and they check all the equipment beforehand. Maybe it's too good, Wanjing smiles at him. Maybe you're hearing whispers from next door or something. All our neighbors' secrets? What is Baba thinking? That gets another short laugh out of Nina. Robert smiles and tucks back into his food. Maybe it is tuned too far up. Maybe someone a few blocks down is giving their baby a bath. Yes, that's all it is. David always gets cranky after eating. Just like his dad, Nina likes to say. Robert has never seen Milton go down for a nap after dinner, but he seems the type. He gazes at the white cardboard box in his hand, the hearing aid nestled inside. Wan Jing's voice drifts to him across the hall, a lilting lullaby for David. Da zhang, ni da bi zi zhen mei na ma xiao. Some things never change. She sang it to Nina as a baby. He pulls out the top drawer of the dresser and sets the box down. Maybe he'll call the company tomorrow, see if they take refunds. Or maybe Nina will have to be the one to call since she bought it? Something buzzes in his left ear. Robert shakes his head. No, it's best his daughter doesn't find out. How heartbroken would she be, discovering her gift was defective? Maybe he won't even call. He's fixed lots of things around the house, hasn't he? He can handle one little hearing aid. Baba? Nina stands in the doorway of the master bedroom. She's tilting her head, frowning at his left shoulder. Baba, you're dripping. Cold wetness along the left collar of his shirt, slowly seeping down his shoulder. Robert blinks and hurries to the bathroom. He squints at himself in the mirror there, touching the growing dark patch. It feels like water. Nina's voice drifts through the door. It's your ceiling leaking. Or, oh, Mama, is David asleep? Just put him down. He naps more than you did as a baby. Runs in the family, I guess. You know, yay always. He doesn't catch the rest, leaning forward for a closer look. Yes, his shirt is definitely stained at the shoulder. He can see the dark splotch. Well, he hadn't thought the roof had any holes. But they haven't checked in a couple of years at least. He'll go out tomorrow and... Coldness gathers in his ear. Robert stares at the slow, deliberate drop of water gathers in the outer shell, then plops down onto his shirt. What in the world? He hasn't gone swimming in ages, but the feeling is the same. That weird, fluid sensation in his ear, something that doesn't belong wriggling around in there. Robert frowns, leans over the sink, and taps the other side of his head with the heel of his hand. A couple more drops leak out. Is this normal? Wanjing and Nina's conversation drifts in and out, voices garbled and alien. He tries to concentrate on their words, but gets only echoey tones. What's going on? Good God, is he going deaf right this minute? He taps harder. More water comes out. And those are not drops. It's a steady flow. It splashes into the sink, splatters over the granite counter and the mirror. He freezes. But the water doesn't, gushing from his ear. Robert gapes at the faucet that his head has become. A thought drifts to him from far away. Is his brain going to come out next? Little gray gloops oozing out into the sink like the cornstarch mixture Wanjing uses to thicken her sauces? Chérie? Something moves in the middle of the flow. A flicker in the water. Robert moans, staring at the little gray worm wiggling, this way and that out his ear canal. Dear God, there is a parasite in his head, and it is eating him alive, except, no, it's not a worm, it's a finger, a tiny gray infant finger, attached as it continues wriggling to another finger, and then another, and then a tiny palm. His ear throbs, sharp needle pain, but Robert barely feels it, unaware of the high noise he makes as he stares at the dead baby coming out of his head. Something grabs his arm. He cries out, jerks sideways. Wan Jing does the same. They stand there for a moment, staring at each other like opposing armies. His wife's eyes are very big. Robert discovers suddenly that he is panting, gasping for breath, as little cold shudders run through his whole body. What? Wan Jing's throat works as she swallows. What's the matter? I walked in, and you were just staring at the mirror like... Robert gasps and snaps back around. He actually sees it for a moment. The hand from before, now attached to an arm, flailing out from his head in a horrible, watery birth. Then he blinks. The sink is empty. The mirror and the counter are clean. He feels nothing in his ear. Fingers shaking, he reaches up to touch his left shoulder. Dry. Liu? Wan Jing approaches slowly, each step careful and deliberate. Husband, please, you're scaring me. She hasn't used Lao Gong, husband, in many years. Should he tell her? What if she doesn't believe him? What if she and Nina think he's... From Nina's bedroom, the sound of a baby's cries. This one must be real, because Wan Jing turns immediately toward it. Oh dear, I just put him down. He doesn't want to follow her out of the room. He stares into the mirror. The paleness of his lips, the terror in the whites of his eyes. There is no water. Not now. But there had been. And if he leaves now, he'll start telling himself it was just a hallucination. Stress from work or something, but he knows it wasn't. He can still feel those fingers clawing their way out of his ear. David's cries rise to an ear-splitting pitch. Robert hurries to the other room. Nina's already there, her son tucked up against her chest, patting his chubby back and walking him back and forth. Wan Jing stands next to her, frowning down at the crib, but that's not what catches Robert's attention. He blinks stupidly at his daughter. He's wet. Damp, more like. He can see it even from here, the translucence of David's pajamas, the thick shininess of his hair. A drop of water forms on his big toe and falls to the carpet. Nina meets his eyes over David's shoulder, and he sees himself there. She's pretending at calm, but there's fear underneath, because she doesn't know what's going on either. David girls a little, and Robert shudders. Wan Jing shakes her head. Liu, come here. He joins her at the crib. His wife nods down at the bedding. Touch it. He does. Dry. His wife turns to him, face pale. Husband, what is going on? It takes forever to get David back to sleep. They change him into new clothes, but he refuses to even approach the crib, descending into screaming protest every time Nina starts an approach. In the end, she takes him to bed with her. Robert can hear her even now, unintelligible murmurs drifting down the hall. He feels like an adulterer or something, sneaking out to the living room to make a phone call, but Wan Jing already feels guilty enough, trying to figure out how she might have gotten David wet before putting him in the crib. Nina tried to reassure her, and Robert knows better, but even now his wife is sorting laundry in worry. shaking her head and muttering to herself between whites and colors. The jingling music in his ear, his right ear, cuts off, replaced by a tinny voice speaking so fast it sets his teeth on edge. "Myerton Medical Surplus, this is Rachel. How can I help you?" "Yes, hello. I have a question about an order my daughter has placed." He gives her the required information and waits through the clacking of her keyboard. "Oh, yes. Here we go. Clear hearing amplifier. Purchased by..." The name slows her better than an elephant trank. "Zootane Fan, correct?" Not even close, but he's used to it. "Yes, I'd like to know the origin of this, machine?" "Sure, hold please, thank you." More clacking. Robert peers out at their darkened yard through the sliding glass door. Wan Jing would call him crazy if she knew. They've never been superstitious people. The only semblance of belief they have consists of occasionally visiting the Buddhist temple to donate money and burn some incense. Fast-talking Rachel with the terrible pronunciation probably won't be able to give him information, much less anything useful. Wild goose chase. That's the English term Nina had taught him for this sort of thing. Call it process of elimination. He's playing a hunch, just trying to get rid of one suspect, however odd. Then he and Wan Jing can do a full inspection of the roof tomorrow, and he can look more carefully at the crib. And Wan Jing will be able to remember that, she did actually give David a quick bath before she put him down. How could she have forgotten? "Okay, you're lucky. This particular Clear device didn't come from a hospital. It actually came from a private donor, a man who... Oh, that's sad. The note says the device was donated by a family after his infant grandson accidentally drowned. Something about the grandfather running him a bath and then forgetting him there and being unable to hear the baby's cries and... Oh my goodness! I probably shouldn't have told you such a horrible story. Would you like a refund, sir? Are you still there?" Which is when the screaming starts. He nearly smashes into Wan Jing in the hallway, eyes wild. "What?" "Mama! Baba!" Nina screeches echo from the bathroom. "For God's sake, help me!" Robert bolts after his wife, heart thumping rabbit wild in his chest. "What's happened? Has the water gotten in?" The bathroom door stands ajar, spilling stark yellow light into the hallway. Wan Jing gets there first and wails, "What are you doing?" Robert shoves past her into the bathroom and gasps. Nina crouches by the bathtub, which is full to the brim. Her pajamas are soaked, and she's up to her elbows in water, hands closed around a squirming dark shape, a baby-sized shape. She's drowning him. Dear God, she's drowning David. Nina keens once more, and reality smashes back in. Robert blinks and sees the muscles and tendons in his daughter's arms bulging with effort. Her feet planted firmly against the tile floor, her tear-streaked face painted in desperation and terror. She's not pushing down. She's pulling. "Baba!" Nina yells, high-pitched in panic, and Robert dives forward. The water is ice-cold when he plunges his hand in, but he ignores it, wrapping already numbing fingers around his grandson's tiny chest. He turns to Nina, stares directly into his daughter's terrified ghost-white face, and says, "Pull! Fang Zui Tian, pull with Baba!" It is as if a spell breaks. They yank David out of the water. Only later will Robert think it is more likely that the water spit him out, and collapse back onto the cold bathroom tile. Wan Jing makes a high, reedy sound and rushes to Nina, who lays David on the floor, fingers flitting over his limp body. His eyes are closed, mouth half open, and Robert doesn't need to be told. As Nina chokes on sobs, wraps her hands around David's rib cage, and begins pushing down on his sternum with her thumbs. He darts down the hall for the phone. None of them notice the innocuous white box sitting on the bathroom counter. It takes the hospital 3 hours to get an interpreter, but that's okay. It gave the ER doctors enough time to stabilize David after Nina and the paramedics managed to bring him back. She's with him in the room now, talking with the tired-looking resident about things like deoxygenation, and hypothermia. Robert only needed to stay long enough to hear the key words. He'll recover. Now he and Wan Jing stand in the hall under a stark, flickering, fluorescent light, its body illumination painting the face of the stubbled social worker in waxen, washed-out colors. He introduced himself a little earlier, but damned if Robert can remember his name now. The interpreter stands between them like a referee. The social worker sighs and scribbles something on his clipboard. Okay, so you're sure there was no one else in the house, he says. The interpreter says nothing. Robert nods. We have a state-of-the-art alarm system. It would have gone off the instant an intruder got in. The interpreter rattles off some English. The social worker frowns. Then that leaves only one person. He drops his voice, as if they are now sharing a big secret. Now, Mr. Fang. The way he says it is so sharp, so foreign. Fang like twang, instead of fong like strong. I know this can sometimes be hard, seeing as how much you both clearly care about David's mother. But I'm sure you both want what's best for David now. So if there's anything you're not telling us, anything at all that you're choosing to leave out... He trails off, probably on purpose, hoping they will leap on the gap like eager schoolchildren. Wan Jing frowns. Zutian loves David. She speaks slowly, as if, even in Mandarin translated to English, the social worker needs some help. She was trying to pull him out of the tub. Both my husband and I saw that. She would never hurt her son or any child. The social worker nods. Yes, I know that, he says, though his expression doesn't change. But you have to understand the way it looks, especially for David's mother. Robert can't help but frown at this, because is this what his daughter has become now? Not Nina or Mrs. Brandt or even Feng Zutian, but just David's mother? No one broke in, and you all claim that no one heard anything until David was already in the tub and screaming. How do we explain that? Robert clenches his fists. The social worker has a point. Nina was sleeping right next to David. She would have sensed his movements when he wriggled out of bed. Someone certainly would have heard the thump of him hitting the floor, too. If not Robert, then his daughter or his wife. Why didn't any of them notice? The social worker shakes his head. Maybe you people are just prone to deafness, he mutters, writing something else on the clipboard. He seems to have forgotten the interpreter was only translating half the conversation. Robert has time to think, oh no, before Wan Jing's face pinches with rage. Don't talk to us like that, his wife snaps, her voice pinging down the hall and drawing several curious gazes. You think we do this? We don't do this! You stop asking stupid questions. Mama, Robert says, but Wan Jing is having none of it. You go home, she yells at the social worker, gapes. You keep saying we do this, and I will sue! I sue your ass till it light on fire! He flees. As Wan Jing shakes her fist at his retreating back, Robert turns to the interpreter, who looks like she can't decide to run or applaud. I'm sorry about that. She just smiles and shakes her head. Nothing to apologize for. Now will you and your wife be all right? Do you need anything else? Recovered, Wan Jing falls quickly back into the role of caring older lady. I'm so embarrassed about yelling. Please forgive me, she says. You've been very helpful. Please, go home. It's late, and you must be tired. The interpreter nods and leaves. Robert shakes his head, but can't dislodge the social worker's last words. Prone to deafness. Why does that... Mama? Baba? Nina trudges down the hall towards them, looking at least 10 years older than she had that afternoon. Wan Jing meets her first, reaching down to grasp her hands. Oh, Tian, how is he? Okay. She heaves a shaky breath, and Robert's throat tightens. His daughter looks so small. He's asleep now. The doctors say he should be better in the morning. Robert nods. He looks for how to comfort his daughter, but he's never been great at physical affection. In the end, he settles for patting her awkwardly on the shoulder. He'll be okay. David's tough, like his mother. That earns him a weak smile. It vanishes when Nina turns to glance back down the hall. I just wish I could have helped him faster. I don't even know how he got in there. But Robert does. Rachel's voice drifts to him, hissing through static. Accidentally drowned. A horrible story. It's crazy. It is. But the sound of a baby crying during dinner, the gurgling noises, that wet, flailing demon hand, the thought when he first heard the screams, has the water gotten in? Amma used to shake her finger at him, with his nose pressed to the window of their little apartment in Taichung, staring out into the night. Don't you go out there, she'd cautioned. Yo Gui, there are ghosts. Except the Gui is already inside. And he'll be damned if he lets it hurt anyone in his family. Nina sniffles. Anyway, I need to go back to the house, get some of David's things. Oh, and I have to call Milton. Nonsense. You stay here, Wan Jing says. Baba can go for you. No, Nina shakes her head, but says nothing more. Her eyes seek out Robert's, wide and helpless, and he understands immediately. When Nina was 2, she came down with a terrible case of pneumonia. Robert stayed away from the hospital for 2 days. Wan Jing gave him hell for it, but having to sit there in the cold, sterile white room and stare at his daughter, his precious baby girl, all drawn and pale and hooked up to 1,000 machines. Okay, he says. Tian Tian and I will go together. Mama, you stay here and watch David. But it's okay, Nina smiles, and it's her best one so far. We'll be right back, I promise. Reaching for the car keys, Robert wonders whether that's a promise she can keep. 5 minutes later, as he pulls the car out of the hospital garage, Nina turns to him with an uncertain look. So I called the hearing aid company. He looks carefully both ways before turning onto the street. They said someone else already called, asking about where the hearing aid came from. You're not going back to help me pack David's stuff, are you? You're not going back for David's stuff, are you? He's watching the road, not Nina, but all the same he hears the small smile in his daughter's voice. That's good, she says, even though it's not really an answer. That's good. The house is quiet when they pull up. Robert can only imagine what the neighbors must have thought just a few hours ago, watching as 2 police cars and an ambulance came careening around the bend of their quiet cul-de-sac. Hopefully, they aren't about to repeat the scene. The front door looms like it's never done before, a silent sentry. Robert pauses and glances back at his daughter. Are you sure? Hunched in a little behind him, Nina gulps. Let's just get this over with. The door creaks when he pushes it open. He doesn't remember it ever doing that before. Their bare feet sink into the carpet, and Robert allows himself a soft chuckle. They're facing down an infanticidal ghost, but of course they take their shoes off first. Nothing moves as they creep up the stairs. The bathroom door stands ajar, vomit yellow light spilling out into the hall. They both duck their heads and hurry past, which is probably why they don't see the empty counter. The master bedroom is just how he and Wang Jing left it, neat and clean and prepared for bed. You can almost just hit the rewind button and the entire evening and find them back there, with Wan Jing saying they should take Nina out for dim sum tomorrow, and Robert nodding and already planning how he'll pass the time during the inevitable shopping that comes afterward. Cold wetness between his toes. He looks down, watching his feet sink into the off-white carpet. Squish. What Nina scrunches her nose and flicks her foot. It's soaked. The smell hits him full on, softly sweet with a vague chemical odor. Baby shampoo? He shudders and casts about the room. Where is it? The wet screeching of Nina's footsteps trails him, her voice a mix of determined and scared. Baba, where did you put it? Robert frowns. I thought. Drip. That came from the bathroom. Drip. Drip. Nina's eyes go wide. Did you? The bedroom door flies open with a bang. The windows do the same, glass exploding inward in a shower of glimmering shards. Robert throws his hands up. Nina screams in sudden pain. He spins. His daughter sprawls on the ground, clawing at the carpet as an invisible force drags her back toward the hallway, toward the bathroom. Her mouth forms a gaping hole, eyes white with terror. Baba! Baba, help me! Sitian! He rushes forward, which is when he sees it. Footprints. Infant-sized, one after the other, making wet stains in the carpet. Walking up from the bathroom and into the bedroom, toward Nina, who is still screaming. His daughter jerks mid-cry. Her spine shoots straight, eyes rolling crazily in their sockets, and she gurgles. Water sloshes out of her mouth. No! Robert dives for her, but his fingers slide off, everything wet. Her eyes fix on him, even as she chokes, and there is a message there, a desperate plea. Find it! He sees his purpose and sprints for the dresser. Yes, that's where he put it. It's here, somewhere. Drawers vomit their contents. Clothes, socks, old watches, and wallets. Where's the Gway? More gurgling noises. He whips around to see Nina still paralyzed on the floor, water oozing from her mouth, her face turning whiter by the second. The baby footprints circle her, then slowly begin making their way up the wall toward the ceiling. In the bathroom, the faucet turns on, a solid rush of water into the tub. Moaning, Robert throws himself back into the task. He has to find it. He has to. Hearing aids spill out of the top drawer, a cascade of brown scattering across the floor. He gapes down at the cruel sea of helpless devices. No, it can't be. From the direction of the bathroom, an angry cry, a high-pitched squeal, gurgling noises, the sound of drowning. Except no, they're not coming from the bathroom anymore. They're coming from Nina. As Robert stares, her eyes roll up and she slumps to the floor, water still trickling onto the carpet. He doesn't even hear his own scream. His daughter, his little Baobei, who only acted out of love, who only bought the hearing aid to help him. Wait, amplifier? The word is strange and foreign on his tongue, but now he says it like a blessing, a prayer. It's not a hearing aid, it's amplifier. And just like that, he sees it, the single gray teardrop amidst the countless dull brown. A powerful, painful jolt shoots up his arm when he grabs it, but he only tightens his grip, turning to face the footprints now halfway across the ceiling. The Gway doesn't belong. The monster that killed his daughter. This is my house. The words shiver up from deep inside, where he is not Robert, or Shilu, or Baba, or Lao Gong, or the 10,000 other names he carries from the bonds in his life. Now he is just a man, facing down a vengeful beast, who sees in him only what it hates. And I am not your grandfather. Nike wo Gwen! He slams his palm down on the wall with all his might. Crack! The footprints pause. Water drips from the ceiling. Piercing cold springs up against his palm. He snatches his hand back, but aside from a damp patch in the white paint, there is nothing there. No plastic, no rubber, not even a dent. Did it? Then, abruptly, something lifts. The footprints vanish. The bathroom faucet turns itself off. The entire house falls silent. Nina slumps on the floor, unmoving. Something makes a high-pitched wail. It might even be Robert, as he skids to his knees, hauling his daughter into his lap. She flops limp as a wet face cloth, eyes closed, cheeks pale. Tian Tian? His throat has closed up. He is the one not breathing. He doesn't know how to do what she did for David earlier. Her torso is too big for him to wrap his hands around. Tian, please? Please, so many things. And it seems so silly now that he let all those chances go, that he didn't embrace her every time she smiled, or touch her hand at dinner, or take out his phone and record her victorious guffawing laughter every time she scored a mahjong win. He didn't even hug her at the hospital when she needed him the most. He has raised his daughter, educated her, disciplined her, funded her, encouraged her, but he has never said he loved her. Whatever kind of father he's been to Nina, he will be a better grandfather to David. He freezes. In his arms, Nina jerks once more, then coughs. Tian! He rears back just in time to see his daughter give a great heave, coughing up what looks like a gallon of water. Her eyes fly open for a moment, lock on his, that beautiful, deep earth brown, then roll back up as she collapses, gasping, breathing, alive. Something has given him his little girl back. The tears flow free. Robert laughs through them and curls over Nina, pulling her close. Her hand grabs hold of his with a firm grip, solid and strong. He will never let go. Whatever is behind this chance, he will take it. He closes his eyes and lets himself cry, listening to his daughter breathe. The wind outside carries the echo of a soft murmur, the shape of an infant's pleased coo.
One of my few distinct memories of childhood is being 6 years old, visiting my maternal grandmother. I'd woken in the middle of the night to a light in my bedroom and sat up to find an old man in a rumpled plaid button-down shirt standing at the foot of my bed. He had slicked back hair, a crooked beak of a nose, and kindly brown eyes set in his wrinkled face. I asked, "What are you doing in my room?" He shrugged, smiled, and disappeared without a word. The next morning I told my grandmother about the strange man and asked if we should call the police. She shook her head and said, "That was Grandpa Eddie. He wanted to check up on you." After breakfast, she showed me a picture of Grandpa Eddie she kept in her nightstand beside the bed, an exact match for the man in my bedroom the night before, right down to the mole on the end of his nose. He died years before I was born. A ghost or a memory of having seen that same picture before? I don't know. I never saw him again. We know what happens to our bodies when we die, but what happens to us? What happens to that seemingly ephemeral point where identity and reality collide? That's the million-dollar question, and one that, depending on your personal beliefs, you are willing to bet your life on the answer. What happens to our memories and experiences, the passions and tender moments woven into our sense of self? Humanity has a love-hate relationship with ghosts because they offer one answer to that very question. Ghosts are us. They embody our hopes and fears of the afterlife, even when we may not believe in one. What we do believe in is that we couldn't produce all of these wonderful stories without your support. There are 2 ways you can do this. Go to PseudoPod.org and click on Feed the Pod to sign up for a monthly subscription or to make a one-time donation. The other way is to leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, or your favorite podcatcher. Share on social media. Anything and everything is greatly appreciated. PseudoPod is part of Escape Artists Incorporated and is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. Theme music is by permission of Anders Manga. And PseudoPod knows you don't believe in ghosts, but you're frightened of them.
It's a pseudopod. It's a big foot.
It's all about podcasts these days.